Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a great friend to values voters, Mitt Romney.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Thank you. What an introduction. And what a welcome. Boy, it's good to be with you again. Boy, it's I guess it is welcome to the Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, President Obama farewell party. This has it's been a pretty tough year for those three. Their numbers are going down the chute faster than a JetBlue flight attendant. Of course, it wasn't so long ago, don't forget, that they were flying high. Remember, the commentators' legs at MSNBC were tingling. Time magazine's cover declared that the Republican elephant was an endangered species. And the president has felt so giddy that he fit in 40 rounds of golf. Mind you, I think the country's probably better off when he's listening to advice from his caddy rather than from his economic advisors. But the laughs and the high fives in the elite quarters of power have quieted down, and did when Bob McDonnell won the governor's race in Virginia. My guess is that the celebrations in the cloakroom came to a halt when Chris Christie showed John Corzine the door, and a special pride for people like me when Scott Brown seized the people's seat in Massachusetts. The liberals went from backslapping to backstabbing. And so, with thanks to Jackie Gleason, how sweet it is. Now, of course, Bob and Chris and Scott are just the beginning. America will soon be seeing a lot more of leaders like Governor Nikki Haley, Governor Susana Martinez, and Senator Marco Rubio. Some pollsters are predicting that conservatives will enjoy a landmark victory. I can't guarantee a specific outcome, but one thing I know, America will repudiate Obama-style liberalism. And part of the reason for that is the abject failure of his first 2 years in office. The president incessantly reminds us that he inherited a recession. Of course, that's why we argued during the campaign that it was no time for on-the-job training. If he or his economic advisors, however, had any experience in the private sector, they would have understood the first three rules for any turnaround, and they are these: focus, focus, and focus. But instead of focusing on the economy, he used the crisis as a cover to push his liberal agenda, from cap and trade to an ill-conceived takeover of American health care. America is sick and tired of an administration that exploited the economic crisis instead of solving it. But lack of focus wasn't the only problem. Ronald Reagan used to say this about liberals: it's not that they're ignorant, it's just that what they know is wrong. And the Obama-Reid-Pelosi record is living proof that he was right. They said that they would help get families and businesses, big and small, back on their feet. But look at what they did. And ask yourself whether it helped or hurt the economy and jobs. Raising taxes on small business hurt. Hiking some taxes on investment by almost 200% hurt. Pushing cap and trade hurt. Stalling agreements to expand trade with other nations hurt. Sharply slanting the playing field in favor of union CEOs hurt. Handing General Motors to the UAW hurt. The federal takeover of health care hurt. Trillions of dollars of new debt hurt. And scapegoating and demonizing the very people who we need to invest in people and jobs, that also hurt. This president and his fellow travelers in Congress implemented the most anti-growth, anti-investment, anti-jobs measures we've seen in our lifetimes. He called it ambitious. I call it reckless. He scared employers, so jobs are scarce. The uncertainty and the lack of predictability that he created has caused businesses to shrink from spending and from hiring. He hasn't helped end the crisis. He made it deeper, longer, and more painful. We've had governments before that declared war on poverty and war on drugs. But this is the first time in our history that government has declared war on free enterprise. And they were wrong. Never before has federal policy been so hostile to small business, on the very businesses that we count on to help grow us out of recessions. Not only do small businesses suffer from higher taxes and regulation, they have to face the new costs and rules of Obamacare. And unlike the Democrats, who voted for that 2,700-page monstrosity, small businesses will actually have to read it to figure out what they have to do. The White House tries to argue that their stimulus has helped. That's a bit like saying that squirting water from a garden hose helps put out a forest fire. The question is not whether it helped a little, but did it do the job, or do it as well as it could have? And the answer to that, is, of course, is a resounding no. They predicted 8% unemployment. It became 10%. Since the Obama stimulus was passed, 127,000 government jobs have been created. Think of that. But more than 2.4 million private sector jobs have been lost. All totaled, there are now nearly 15 million Americans that are out of work. And if they stood in a single unemployment line, it would stretch from Washington, D.C. to California and back again. If that's their vaunted recovery summer, heaven help us from their recovery winter. Of course, the economy is slowly getting better, and it will eventually right itself. It'll be thanks to the hard work and innovation of the American people. Of course, you can count on Vice President Biden to say that he and the president deserve all the credit. No, they have prolonged the recession, extended the pain of joblessness, and added to the burden that will hang over this economy for generations. Their failure, of course, is one reason why they will only serve one term. Isn't it fitting that those who have such contempt for the private sector will soon find themselves back in it? If only the president would have made the economy job one. If only he had listened to conservatives who called for less spending, less taxing, less borrowing, and less government. If only he had crafted incentives for businesses to hire and to invest. If only his stimulus had spent less to protect his government unions and more to protect our troops. If only he had confronted the growing threat from unfunded entitlements, unfunded pensions, and gargantuan liabilities at Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. If only he had in fact been transparent and bipartisan and uniting as he pledged in his campaign, then perhaps he could have delivered on his promise of yes, we can. Instead, we know all too well that no, he didn't. Isn't it ironic that a president who said he would unite the country has turned out to be the most divisive in history? But he has succeeded in one way. He has united virtually all of America against him. Now, the president's foreign policy hasn't compensated for his failure at home. Under his engagement policy, North Korea has tested nuclear weapons, launched long-range missiles, and sunk a South Korean ship. Iran has funded Yemeni insurgents, armed terrorists, and of course has accelerated their nuclear program. He gave Russia their #1 foreign policy objective, abandonment of our Eastern Europe missile defense sites. And in return, he got nothing. He actually insulted our best friend in the Middle East, Israel, at the United Nations in his first speech there, and forgot to mention that Hamas has launched thousands of rockets into Israel. Now, we have seen success in Iraq, but that's in spite of his policy preferences and thanks to those of his predecessor and the courage of George W. Bush. And as you know, his strategy in Afghanistan has been needlessly muddled by announcing a withdrawal date, unfortunately putting domestic politics ahead of national purpose. Yes, we have serious enemies and growing threats around the world. Unfortunately, we have an administration whose idea of a rogue state is Arizona. These are among the reasons why liberals are going to have a bad November. Of course, the pundits will be right that this isn't the first time that power has been taken away from one political party and given to the other. But what is occurring in America today is different than simply a shift in seats. And it's not merely the result of disappointment or anger, even though there may well be reason for both. What's being felt in America today is more profound than that, more solemn, more somber. Americans believe that Washington is threatening the very foundations of what has made America, America. Washington is assaulting America's values. It's endeavoring to change what this nation has been, to change what it is, and to change what it's destined to become. This room is filled every year with citizens, modern patriots, who are passionate about America's values. These values include the sanctity of life and the preservation of marriage. And this administration has taken its assault on values to even more American values. The American people have finally seen Obama liberalism for what it is. They've seen the counterfeit values that underlie it, and they want none of it. Those liberal values include spending and borrowing on behalf of my generation, even though it will bankrupt my children and grandchildren's generation. That's not our values. They believe that the rule of law should be subordinate to their view of the greater good. They believe that government knows best how to care for your health, not you, not your doctor. They believe that the rewards of success should be taken from the person who created them and given to the one that did not.